Recently, a friend of mine told me a very interesting story. She went to see a gynecologist. It was just a routine checkup, nothing special at all. She sat in the waiting room for about 20 minutes, then went into the office, saw the gynecologist, came out, and went to the reception desk to pay for her appointment. And then, when she got home and looked in the mirror, she found dried toothpaste on her chin. Just imagine, she sat in the waiting room for 20 minutes. There were dozens of women around, and not a single one, absolutely no one, told her about it. And I think we women can message a complete stranger to tell her that her husband is cheating on her. We can post screenshots, attach proof. Basically, we can spend our time to whisper to the woman standing next to us in line. Hey, do you have a run in your tights? Or do you have toothpaste on your chin? For some reason, that's really, really hard, and probably in our modern society, it's almost impossible. Telling a friend, you have lipstick on your teeth, that seems like some kind of huge feat for women these days. And why is that? Imagine you're standing in a crowded room where every woman isn't just a person, but a walk-in set of points that you subconsciously compare to your own. We've been trained to scan each other in a split second. Shoes, skin tone, the sparkle in her eyes, her husband's success, or even just how cool the project she's pitching to you is. And honestly, this internal scanner works overtime, draining the life out of us much faster than any toxic job ever could. That's why today I want to talk with you about why we've turned our lives into an endless Hunger Games, where the main prize is the illusion of superiority, and why real power begins where the whispers behind your back end. I suggest we take a closer look at who actually benefits from our rivalry, how the fear of being left out makes us drag down those walking beside us, and what an incredible resource we as women lose when we choose competition over alliance. I encourage you to watch this video until the end, because at the finale, I'll share a very simple test that will forever change the way you see any woman who walks into a room, and maybe, finally, help you get out of this exhausting race. It might seem like, yeah, toothpaste on your face is no big deal, just a little thing. And by the way, I've been in a similar situation more than once, especially back when I was a student. And I studied in an all-female group. There were literally just a few guys in our class. And no one told me about it all day until I got home and saw that miracle on my face. So basically, the story my friend went through is something I know all too well from personal experience. And so it would seem, right? Toothpaste on your chin, on your face, or somewhere else, it seems like such a small thing, just a silly everyday mistake, but it actually contains the whole tragedy of our social interactions. Why is it that out of 10 women in line, not a single one found the courage to just quietly say, "Sweetie, you have a little spot right here"? We're used to calling it tact, a reluctance to invade someone else's personal space, or just plain inattentiveness. But let's be completely honest with ourselves in front of this mirror. The moment we notice someone else's flaw, there's a tiny burst of dopamine inside us. We feel just a little bit more perfect, a little more put together compared to this scatterbrained person. And that's exactly the cold calculator that switches on instantly without us even realizing it. We assess our chances in this invisible auction for attention, where any slip-up by another woman automatically becomes your entry ticket or a step up the ladder. It's scary to admit that we've learned to build our own comfort on the foundation of someone else's discomfort, even in such little things. And this invisible war actually starts much earlier than when we even become aware of ourselves as individuals. Think back to your school days, when the prettiest girl in class automatically became the target of either bullying or quiet, poisonous hatred. We weren't taught to be friends with the strong. We were taught to survive among competitors. And so we grow up. We grow older, swap out school drama for expensive handbags, but our patterns stay the same. We walk into the office, and the first thing we assess isn't the new colleague's professionalism, but how much she might threaten our status as the smartest or most charming. In fact, it's just like that old fairy tale where the mirror has to confirm that you're the smartest, the fairest, the most beautiful, and so on. Otherwise, your whole world just falls apart. But the real paradox is that the world doesn't collapse just because someone else nearby is shining brightly too. It falls apart because we spend a colossal amount of energy maintaining these invisible barricades, instead of just coming together and building something shared, something together. So why do men often seem more united than you in this regard? Of course, male competition exists, that's a fact. And it can be pretty ruthless, but they have this amazing rule of professional solidarity. They might hate each other, but if a buddy's fly is open or if there's a bird dropping on his shoulder, they'll just say it straight out without any hidden meaning. But for us, any help we offer is often seen as an act of charity from above, or even worse, as an attempt to humiliate someone by pointing out their mistake. And we're so afraid of being vulnerable that any help in hand starts to feel like a hidden shove in the back. It's existential loneliness in a crowd of people just like us. The biggest price we pay for the right to be considered the best? We're afraid to come together because deep down we believe that resources are scarce. It feels like if another woman gets a compliment, recognition, or success, those blessings will be irreversibly taken out of our own personal piggy bank. Or even worse, that she got all of that at our expense by taking something away from us. But let's take a step back and look at this through the eyes of a completely outside observer who made us believe that there's only so much room under the sun. If we stop seeing society's attention as a limited pie that we have to grab a piece of before it's gone, the whole picture changes completely. Imagine that another woman's success isn't your defeat, but proof. Proof that it's actually possible to achieve what you want in this world. When we genuinely start to celebrate other people's victories, we tap into a tremendous source of strength. But for now, at this moment, we women prefer to bask in the glow of someone else's shame because it seems like a safer and cheaper way to feel important, to seem not to be. And this, I believe, is real fast food for self-esteem. It's quick, it's accessible, but in the long run, it leads to emotional exhaustion and spiritual emptiness. And I often notice how on social media, women, especially in threads, split into two camps. As soon as one woman dares to express her own position or personal opinion, hundreds of others immediately rush in to devalue her, to take a jab, or to find some flaw in her appearance. We've become voluntary overseers of each other, even though most of us were never asked to do this. We punish each other for being overweight, for not being mindful enough, for wearing makeup that's too bold, or for not wearing any at all. We've created a system where, for women, another woman is a strict censor, not a teammate. And the saddest part is that because of this constant surveillance, we've already lost our own freedom, even though many of us still haven't realized it. Because if I judge another woman for her supposedly wrong choice, I'm automatically putting restrictions on my own spontaneity too. I become a prisoner of the very boundaries I build around others. And it's a vicious cycle where the jailer and the prisoner are actually the same person. What's interesting is that this mechanism works even when there's absolutely nothing for us to compete over. We compete in lines, in the comments, under mutual friends' posts, even at the gym, where each of us pushes ourselves not for our health, but just so we don't look worse than the girl on the treadmill next to us. It's like a mass psychosis of comparison. But let's consider a counter-argument for a second. Maybe this is actually the driving force behind progress? Maybe it's this very desire to be better that pushes us to grow, take care of ourselves, and learn new things? At first glance, it really does seem that way. Competition really does give us a boost, especially for men. But if you take a closer look, that kind of motivation is like running on broken legs. You're not running toward your own goal, but away from the fear of being worse than others. And in the end, you don't end up happy, you just end up completely burned out. Because there will always someone younger, more successful, or with a more even skin tone. And right here, I think, lies the most important hook that we often ignore. While we're busy fighting over these tiny, dirty crumbs of attention, we miss out on huge opportunities that only open up through partnership. Just look at how the most successful communities in the world are built. They're based on support and sharing resources. When women, or really just people in general, come together, magic happens. Something you can never achieve alone. It's like in a symphony orchestra. If every violin tries to outplay the others, all you get is cacophony. But when they play together, that's when music is born. And that music gives everyone in the audience goosebumps. So why is it so hard for us to tune our instruments in unison? I thought about this for a long time, but in the end, I realized the answer is actually very simple and, unfortunately, not very pleasant. We're really afraid of losing our uniqueness. We feel like in a crowd of strong people, we'll just disappear. But in reality, it's exactly when we're surrounded by strong people that we grow the fastest. So ask yourself this question. When was the last time you sincerely, without any ulterior motive or desire to take a jab, gave a compliment to a woman you like, but who also makes you feel a little pang of envy? Envy, after all, is the most honest marker of our true desires. And if you envy her figure, it means you want to work on your own body. If you envy her career, it means your own potential is demanding to be realized. So instead of directing that poison at her, try using it as fuel for yourself. But instead, society offers us a time-tested scenario. Devalue your competitor, and you'll feel much better. She's successful because she just got lucky. She's beautiful because it's all plastic surgery. She's happy because she's just putting up with it. We come up with thousands, even millions of excuses not to acknowledge someone else's hard work and talent, just so we don't feel not good enough by comparison. Here's what I've noticed as an independent observer. Those who shout the loudest about sisterhood and women's empowerment on social media are often the first to stab you in the back in real life. It's a kind of modern oxymoron. We create the appearance of support as long as it's beneficial or trendy, but as soon as it comes to actually sharing resources, money, influence, or even men, the masks come off for good. Why do we so easily betray the very idea of solidarity? Well, probably because we were never taught that another woman isn't a threat. She's an extension of ourselves. We've been separated by barriers that have benefited patriarchal society for centuries. Divide and comfort. And so women who are at odds with each other are much easier to control. They're easier to manipulate. It's easier to sell them products to improve themselves. It's basically a gold mine for marketers. It's easier to impose standards on them and dictate the rules. But now, let's flip the chessboard and imagine the power we would have if we stopped spending 80% of our mental energy judging and criticizing each other. If that same line at the gynecologist's office was a place where a woman felt completely safe, knowing that if something was wrong, she would always get help and no one would judge her with a look, that's really the most basic level of trust in the world. We look for support from psychologists, in books, at workshops. But the most powerful and free source of this support is sitting right across from us on the subway or working at the next desk. But we prefer to stare at our phone screens just to avoid making eye contact with a rival. And by the way, speaking of men, we often blame them for pitting us against each other. But honestly, aren't we the ones handing them all the cards to do it? When we compete for their approval, we're the ones willingly putting ourselves on the shelf like products. Pick me, I'm better, I'm quieter, I'm prettier, I cook better. It's humiliating for both sides, but we keep playing this game, passing it down to our daughters. We teach them to be princesses who have to outdo other princesses to win the prince. But why not teach them to be allies? Why not show them that together they can build an entire castle without waiting for anyone's approval? You know what the biggest catch is in this endless race among women? It's that there isn't even a finish line. You can become the fittest at the gym, the most productive in your department, or the perfect mom in the parent group chat. But inside, that anxious feeling still lingers. What if tomorrow someone comes along and does it better? That anxiety is a direct result of our disconnection from each other. When you're on your own against everyone else, the world starts to feel like a completely hostile place. A place where you have to stand up for yourself and always be on guard. But as soon as you even slightly allow yourself to think that the woman next to you isn't a threat to your well-being, but a potential ally, your cortisol levels really do start to drop sharply. And that's not magic, it's just basic psychology of safety. Because we look for support outside ourselves, even though it's always been right under our noses in simple human connections. Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine this. Two groups of girlfriends. In the first group, there's an unspoken rule. Everyone has to be perfect. If someone has problems with her husband, is overweight, or has a career setback, nobody talks about it because they know. Behind their backs, there will be snickers or even worse, toxic pity, which is really just disguised gloating. In that kind of group, you're always tense, always wearing a corset, even if you're in pajamas. Now, let's talk about the second group. There, you can show up with smeared mascara, admit that you feel fat and like a failure, and instead of being judged, you'll be accepted. Listen, I went through the same thing 3 months ago. Let's think about how we can work this out. Do you feel the difference in the air density? In the first case, you're rivals in a jar full of spiders. In the second, there's a strength that can't be broken because your resources add up instead of subtracting from each other. But of course, I imagine many of you might object right now and say, but there really are unpleasant women who are always looking to take a jab. Why should I unite with them? That's actually a great counterargument. Of course, I'm not telling you to go hug toxic people. My point is something else entirely. It's about stopping being the one who attacks first. We often attack preemptively just to protect ourselves. We see a beautiful, confident woman and immediately start looking for her flaws. Yeah, her teeth are probably fake. That's why she smiles like that. That's her shield. But what if, instead of looking for flaws, you just walk up and sincerely say, "You have an amazing smile. It's so uplifting." You'll see how the wall comes down in a second. In 99 cases out of 100, that ice queen turns out to be just as anxious a girl as you are, also waiting for the other shoe to drop. Of course, you shouldn't be vague, because some hypocrites use this approach to lure a potential victim for future attacks. Let's not talk about that. We're all just really tired of being afraid of each other. I'm deeply convinced that women's unity is the main social trend of the future, one that we still haven't fully figured out yet. We're used to thinking that female friendship is a myth and that a group of women is a snake pit. And these phrases are like old greasy wallpaper that should have been torn down ages ago. Who benefits from us believing this? It's definitely not us. When we're divided, it's really easy to manipulate us through feelings of inadequacy. But when we start sharing our real, unfiltered experiences, it turns out our problems are basically the same. And the solutions one of us finds can easily help someone else too. Someone else from months of depression or from making mistakes. This is exactly what the support economy is. It's way more effective than any personal coaching, but hardly anyone will tell you that. Just look at how our world changes when women stop fighting over territory and start creating it together. In business, in creativity, and raising children? Really, everywhere trust-based partnerships appear, the results always grow exponentially. Of course, that doesn't mean we all have to become the same or always agree with everyone about everything. On the contrary, our differences, our identities, that's our main asset. One person knows how to bring order to chaos, another inspires, a third notices the details. And if we stop wasting time figuring out who's more important among us, we can actually build something truly meaningful. The irony is that we seek recognition from a world that's often completely indifferent to us, and we do this while ignoring the recognition from those who understand us best, other women. Let's do a little experiment. All right, think about one woman who irritates you the most. Maybe it's a coworker, a famous blogger, or even your current partner's ex. Now, try to set aside all those labels and ask yourself just one question. What exactly about her makes me feel insecure? The answer will always be about you, not about her. And at that moment, competition turns into therapy. And as soon as you realize which of your own shortcomings you're trying to compensate for through your dislike of her, your hostility will disappear. All that'll be left is curiosity and maybe a drop of sympathy. After all, she's probably fighting the same exhausting battle with the world. The very same one you're fighting. So I want you, after watching this video, to go out into the world with a slightly warmer outlook towards strangers. Maybe even change your opinion a little bit. Of course, you don't have to go hugging everyone right away, but start small. Notice that bit of toothpaste on someone's chin? Mention it the way you'd want someone to mention it to you. Gently, quietly, in a whisper. And support someone else's idea if it's a good one. Even if it was voiced by someone you really like, and you don't want to give her any extra points just by agreeing with her opinion, stop being a censor and start being an observer. An observer who looks for points of connection, not fault lines. Real power isn't when you're alone at the top of the mountain, but when you're part of a vast network that's got your back if you suddenly stumble. Let's take an even deeper look into this social mechanism. We're used to thinking that competition is when two women fight over one man or one job. But in reality, the most toxic battles happen on the field of invisible standards of what's right. Which one of us is the better mother? Who's the more self-aware person? Who manages to juggle career and home life better? We've turned motherhood, self-development, and even relaxation into Olympic sports. And if someone nearby seems to handle things a little more easily and looks a bit happier, instead of feeling joy, we start to wonder anxiously, what's wrong with me? And instead of asking that woman, hey, how do you do it? Can you share your secret? We start looking for a catch in her success. She must have a nanny. She's probably just taking antidepressants. It's all just social media filters. We devalue someone else's resources so we don't have to admit our own shortcomings. But what if I told you that this sense of lack is just an illusion? After all, we were taught to believe that there's not enough love, money, or success in the world. If someone takes a big piece, all that's left for us are crumbs. That's the poverty mindset, by the way, which makes us envy and compete with each other. But in reality, social capital works completely differently. When you support another woman, you're not giving away your energy, you're multiplying it. It's like the open source principle in programming. The more people contribute to the shared knowledge base, the better the system becomes for every participant. And that's exactly what women's solidarity is, an open source code. For building a new reality, where instead of me against you, the formula is together we stand against the circumstances. It might sound like an idealistic fairy tale, but just look at any crisis situation. In lines for aid, in support chats, in volunteer movements, it's women who are the first to build horizontal connections. We know how to do this on a biological level. It's just that for some reason, we tend to forget this skill in peaceful times. And now, here's the promise test. The one I mentioned to you right at the beginning. The next time a woman walks into the room and your first reaction is irritation, or maybe envy, or the urge to make a snide remark, pause for a second and don't let your inner calculator kick in. Take a deep breath and silently tell yourself, she is me, just with a different story. Picture her as a little girl who also wanted to be loved. Imagine her, tired after a long day at work. Imagine that she also has moments of despair when she looks in the mirror and sees only flaws. As soon as you see a person in her and not just a competitor, believe me, the magic of hostility will disappear. You'll feel a strange sense of relief because you won't have to waste energy on defending yourself anymore. You'll simply be able to exist. We are living in an era where the old hierarchies, they're collapsing. The masculine world of power and dominance is gradually giving way to a world of flexibility and empathy. And who, if not us, will become the driving force behind these changes? If we keep playing the game of who's tougher, we'll just be recreating the old system of oppression, only this time in a female form. But if we choose the path of unity, we'll become a force that can no longer be ignored. When one woman helps another rise, they both become stronger. Not because they're standing on tiptoe, but because the foundation beneath them has become stronger. And so I want to end this conversation with a simple thought. Next time you see that bit of toothpaste on another woman's chin, whether it's a real stain or a metaphorical mistake in life, don't stay silent. Say something about it. But say it in a way that she feels your warmth, not your superiority. Because tomorrow, you might find yourself in her place, and in that moment, it'll feel really unpleasant. And you'll really wish that next to you was a friend, not a judge. We're not enemies. We're one big pack that's just a little lost in the forest of social stereotypes. And I believe it's about time for us to step into the light together. We're afraid to come together because deep down, we believe that if there are two strong women, there won't be enough room for everyone. Well, that's a lie. Two strong women aren't competition, they're the opposite, they're power. Two strong women can change so much more than one. And 10, that's even more. 100, don't even get me started. So next time you see a woman you don't know with toothpaste on her face, a stained skirt, or smudged lipstick, kindly and discreetly let her know. After all, it'll only take a moment of your time. It doesn't cost you anything, but it could be the beginning of a different attitude, the beginning of a different world. A world where women aren't enemies to each other, but simply people who support and understand one another. Thank you for listening up to this point, if anyone actually has. It's really important for me to know that I'm not standing alone in this line for support. I'd really love to hear about your feelings and opinions. And if you write in the comments under this video about what you think of everything I've said, or share your own personal experience, I'll be really happy because I always love to learn about public opinion and I'm interested in what other people think. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next episode, where we'll keep noticing the things that, unfortunately, others prefer to ignore.